Okay, so today's our last section of this chapter, and we're going back to 9.6, which involves the quadratic formula. So we can find the solution to any quadratic equation by using that quadratic formula. Okay, so our quadratic formula, it just looks like this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Okay, so that's based off of your quadratic equation that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so in this first example, we want to figure out what our a, b, and c are. So our a is always going to be our coefficient attached to our x squared. So our a is going to be 2, our b is going to be 3, and our c is going to be negative 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to use our a, b, and c and plug it directly into our quadratic formula. So we are going to have x equals negative b, so we're going to have a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so we're going to have 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 5, all over 2 times that a, which is 2. So from here, we're just going to simplify this. So this is going to equal this negative 3 still on the outside, plus or minus the square root of 9 squared, or 3 squared, which is 9. And then we have negative 4 times 2 times negative 5, which gives us a positive 40 over 2 times 2, which is just going to be 4. Okay, so we're going to simplify that even more. We have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 40, which is 49 over 4. Okay, so that gives us negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 49 is 7 over 4. So from here, we are going to split this apart into 2 separate chunks. Okay, so our first chunk is going to be that negative 3 plus 7 over 4. So if we simplify that, that gives us 4 over 4, which equals 1. So that's one of our solutions. And our second one is going to be that negative 3 minus 7 over 4, which gives us negative 10 over 4, which we can simplify to negative 5 over 2. So those are our 2 solutions to this quadratic equation up here. Okay, so if we go to our next page, we want to make sure that we are writing our standard equation, or our quadratic equation, in standard form. Okay, before we use the quadratic formula. That means that we have to set our quadratic function equal to 0. Okay, so for this first problem, we need to set everything equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we are going to subtract this 2x to the other side, which gives us x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. So we want to figure out our a, b, and c. So our a is just going to equal 1 because there's an invisible 1 right there. Our b is going to equal negative 2. And our c is going to equal negative 8. So we're going to plug it back into that function again, or that formula again, which is x equals negative b. So negative of that negative plus or minus the square root of b squared. So we've got negative 2 squared in parentheses minus 4 times a times that c, which is negative 8, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, so we're going to simplify this just a little bit. So that gives us x equals negative of negative is a positive 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 32. because negative 4 times negative 8 is a positive 32, all over 2, which gives us x equals 2 plus the square root of 36, plus or minus the square root of 36, excuse me, over 2, which equals 2 plus or minus 6 over 2. So we have to split that up. So we're going to have 2 plus 6 over 2 and 2 minus 6 over 2. So 2 plus 6 is 8 over 2. That leaves us with 4. And 2 minus 6 is negative 4 over 2, which leaves us with negative 2. So our answers are x equals 4 and x equals negative 2. So go ahead and try the got it problem on your own, and then you should be finished. So our got it problem, we are going to subtract this 21 over to the other side. That leaves us with x squared minus 4x minus 21 equals 0. That means that our a equals 1, our b equals negative 4, and our c equals negative 21. So we are going to have x equals the opposite of our b. So our opposite of our b is just 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is negative 21, all over 2 times our a, which is 1. So this gives us x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 84 over 2. So simplifying that even more, that gives us 4 plus or minus the square root of 100 over 2, which means we have 4 plus or minus 10 over 2. And when we split that up into 2, that gives us 4 plus 10 over 2 and 4 minus 10 over 2. So 4 plus 10 is 14 over 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And 4 minus 10 is 6 over 2. That gives us a negative 3. So our solutions to this are going to be 7 and negative 3.